Hi, my name is Zakia Carr Johnson, and I am founding director of Black Women Disrupt, an initiative aimed at supporting Black women entrepreneurs and innovators, founded in 2018 in Atlanta, Georgia. In 2019, we created a project with our partners, Dylan Valley, a fabulous documentary filmmaker, and Antoinette Engel, a producer located in Cape Town, South Africa. We decided to collaborate to focus on sister disruptors in the audiovisual space, particularly those interested in web series as a vehicle for storytelling. I just wanted to thank our partners, Howard University, Graduate Film, and Howard alumni, for making the masterclass offered today possible. Thank you, and welcome to our community.
Hi everyone, I am LaDawn Manuel. I'm a cinematographer from Cleveland, Ohio. I currently live in the DMV area. I graduated from Howard's MFA program for film in 2018. So yeah, today I'm going to talk to you guys about cinematography and lighting a little bit. It's not going to be super technical, but we are going to talk about the creative process and things of that nature. I'm going to walk you through a few lookbooks and things of that sort. But first, I'll start with, where I started at and my inspirations as far as my career so far. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Right, so so the first slide is just called finding because it's talked. I just wanted to talk about kind of just where I started as an artist. I didn't have a traditional um interest in film like most cinematographers. I've always been able to draw and paint, and drawing and painting kind of led me into photography. So that is what I wanted to study in my undergraduate career. So I went to Ohio University and I studied photography and integrated media. And from there, I kind of got into film. But my inspirations as a photographer, I didn't really find them until I got to college. Being from Cleveland, I was outside a lot. I was playing a lot. And I did watch a lot of movies. I didn't per se watch a lot of cartoons, but if HBO had the little segment where they give you like the free movie channels for like a month, that would be like the only thing I watched for the month straight. So I've always kind of used movies to escape in a way. But yeah. So Carrie Mae Weems is a photographer. She's a big inspiration to me. These are some stills from her book, the Kitchen Table series. Some of her work and some of the shot selection that she uses comes up in my work a lot. Mm. This is a still by the photographer Nan Golden. Um, a lot of her work kind of centers around abuse and some kind of addiction and things of that nature. But I was inspired by her a lot as well in my photography and as well as my cinematography career. These are some more stills by Nan. This is a still by the photographer Larry Clark. He's also a director. If you've seen the movie Kids, it was very controversial at the time it came out. It came out in 1995, I believe. But this is from his first photography book called Tulsa, which is almost in a way it's an autobiography of the life he lived as a kid in Oklahoma. So it's this still and a few on the next as well. He has another photography book called Teenage Lust, and he has another one, I believe, called The Perfect Child, but it is banned in America and a lot of other countries as well. This is a still by Robert Mapplethorpe. I discovered him, I want to say, my junior year in undergrad. I kind of just went on a little road trip to Columbus, Ohio to go to their museum, the Wexner, and they had their gift shop there with a bunch of photography books. And I came across one of his books, and that's when I started to kind of dive into who he was as an artist. He was very big in the gay community for men during the 80s and 90s. So these are some more stills by him.
I think you want to watch this.
Oh shit. Sorry.
And this is actually, these are actually his eyes, so this is him. And this is, well, to the left, this is Salvador Dali, one of my favorite painters. And to the right, this is Miles Davis. But these photographs were taken by a photographer by the name of Irving Penn. And I discovered him in 2015 when I first moved to DC. I just happened to go to the portrait gallery, and they had a lot of his work on display. I love the way um, Penn takes um, photographs, as far as the way he captures people, and the emotion in their face. So it always sticks out to me. He actually photographs his wife a lot too. Um, and this is a still by the photographer Dina Lawson. I really just figured out who she was this past year, thanks to just being in the house and being forced to kind of sit with myself as an artist during COVID. Is when I've kind of found some of her work. I love the way that she captures people's in their natural element. It's almost, not, it's voyeuristic, but it's not voyeuristic because it seems like she's supposed to be there. Like these are her people, and they are her people. So I love the way that she's able to capture the essence of people in their homes. I love the colors that always come out. It seems very natural, almost as if I can kind of like touch it. Like this wood here really feels like wood through a photograph. So I really appreciate the way she captures things. This is another still by her. And now this is some of the stills that I've taken. Some of them is started in 2011, 2014, and then kind of spanned through 2015, I believe. But this is where I started as a photographer before I really got into film, and wanted to just give my photography a more visceral effect. Take a lot of self portraits. Um, Especially being influenced by Larry Clark and Nan Goldin, as well as, Carrie and Robert. They work in a lot of self portraits. So I think it's very important to document yourself through your stages of life, no matter kind of what you're going through or where your headspace is. I've always just been able to kind of pick up a camera, so, and take self portraits. The next slide is called Discovery because just now at this point I'm in film school. So we're in 2015 and I'm just learning more about the craft of cinematography. So I've already discovered that I want to do film and I also minored in it. So, I've learned how to physically shoot on a cinema camera and things of that nature. But now I get to discover cinematography as an art form. So these are my influences as far as that. So this is Wong Kar Wai. To the left, this is some stills from his film 2046. It's my favorite film by him. It's very colorful. It's very bright. And I used to think it was a love movie, and I watched it during COVID, and it's very sad. It's actually sad. It's a movie about love. It's not a movie about being in love. It's pretty almost like the sequel to the film here on the right, which is his film In the Mood for Love. And I watched that film during the pandemic as well. And when I watched this film, it was kind of just like, yes, this is the movie about being in love. It's very delicate. I love the way that he spaces uh, the characters apart in the scenes. I love that he uses a lot of empty space and he puts a lot of distance, not too much distance between the characters, but just enough. I like the way he sets up his compositions and his framing. So like here, there's multiple things that kind of lead you to her in this frame, and I appreciate that. So this is Wong Kar Wai. Here is a still from Malcolm X, which is directed by Spike Lee and shot by Ernest Dickerson, another Black cinematographer. And I love the way, I love how distorted the close-ups look and that Spike tends to shoot, or the way that Ernest tends to shoot. It's very much in your face, and I view it as almost controversial. But he always does that in a very pleasing way, and I love the way Spike uses color as well. It always kind of bleeds through the screen. It's always, you can always see it. You can almost feel it in a sense. So this is another still from Do the Right Thing, another Spike film, and I love Do the Right Thing. It's probably my favorite film by him, and it's because the entire film, when I teach my classes, I make all my students watch it. It's the film itself is hot, and the day starts hot, and the heat only builds throughout the day, and that's kind of what helps bring you to that big climactic scene at the end. When there's like a fire going on, and I don't want to give the movie away if no one's seen it, but you should watch the film if you haven't. But the entire film itself, on top of being hot, it is very loud, and it's also very in your face. So this shot comes up in this film multiple times through the use of different characters. So I like that repetition. This is another still from that movie as well. So like I said, it's very hot. You can see he's kind of Spike. It's kind of just resting his head. He's very sweaty here. He's inside, so it's a moment where of a little coolness, some shade, a little bit to be out of the heat. This is a still from Goodfellas. I'm heavily influenced by Martin Scorsese, and I like Scorsese's work because I view his work as being very chaotic. I like films, or when you watch my films, I want you to feel it in a sense, but I also want to take you on a roller coaster ride. I enjoy when you take me to like my highest peak and then kind of almost just like crush my heart, but then you kind of mend it back together as you continue throughout the film. And I think that Scorsese does a good way of doing that in his films. They're very, very chaotic in a sense. No matter if we're talking about Goodfellas or Wolf of Wall Street, or The Irishman, or Taxi Driver, which is another film by Scorsese. I used to couldn't stomach this film when I first seen it. I appreciated it, but I did not like it. As well as his other film, King of Comedy. It's a dark comedy, and yeah, it made me very uncomfortable. So he does a great job of really immersing you in the story. Uh, Here is a still from Selma, and that is directed by Ava DuVernay and shot by Bradford Young, who's also an Howard alum. I loves Brad work for a lot of different ways, but particularly Selma for how dark it is. I like to play with the lack of light. You're just showing you just enough, and it's funny because I've like talked to Brad a couple times, and he always talks about shooting the scene in the cell and how like the producers and things like that, they were just like, we can't see anything, there's no information, but to me, I can see a lot of this. It tells you the mood. It's it you can it's great. So I really enjoy this one. This is another still from Selma as well, where you see kind of just enough. This is a still from his film Mother of George that he shot. This is almost the opposite of Selma. It's very colorful. It's very bright. Um, this is a shot from his film Pariah. Uh, and then these are some stills from a film he shot called Mississippi Damned. And I love this film because it reminded me of a lot of things from when I was younger, and just watching it with the first still, just having parties and or being a kid, kind of roaming around a party like during like at my like grandmother's house, like during the holiday or whether it be a weekend or something like that. I remember learning how to play spades at a very young age, so just kind of trying to be, in the kitchen surrounded by grown people and or adults and being kind of shooed away. So it's very reminiscent of that. It also reminded me of the film. I want to say I think it's Menace to Society, where it starts this way, where he's a younger kid roaming through the house with a similar party. Um, and the still on the right, I like it because it's the frame's pretty much, it's not empty, but it's almost seems intimate if you until you kind of focus in on what's really going on and seeing, how the guy is grabbing her. And then the last still on the bottom right here is just chaos, and you can see it in her face. You can see the emotion that's there, and I really appreciate this still. This is a shot from Moonlight. So usually, I kind of play this video. If we have time at the end, I'll come back and play it, and it just shows you the main character Chiron walking in from outside, and I appreciate the scene because it's pretty much lit with all practical lighting. So it really just follows him as he trails through the diner to sit here. I like that he has the gold accents around his neck with the chain in his mouth because I think gold looks really good on black skin. It's just another way to make it pop. And the diner is already lit with tungsten lighting to kind of give you these kind of amber oranges kind of tones that we see. This is that same exact scene, but this is before he enters the diner. And these are some more up-to-date stills. I want to say we're around like 2015 to 2018 now. Every still I take ends up as a shot, ends up popping up in any kind of short film that I do. I like to use them as camera tests. They're not camera tests when I take them, but I always go back to them for inspiration. So this is me playing with, I guess, the lack of light. So the only thing I'm lit with is the bathroom, which is off screen, and the door is slightly cracked. Uh, this is another. And this photo is always really interesting because for this, with my two roommates who were also Howard grad students, we kind of had like a cellar, and every wine bottle I think I drank for like 2 years, it just ended up there because I was saving it for some big project. I didn't know what, and then one day I finally started taking photos, and I think they were so happy to finally walk through the door and not trip over just like mountains of wine bottles. But anyway. All right. So for the design portion, as a cinematographer, you are helping bring the director's story to life. It's not necessarily your story. Every story you shoot is going to have a little bit of you in it, of course, but it is not your story. So I really appreciate when directors come to me and they have a design book. It doesn't have to be as in depth as a lookbook for cinematographer, but I feel like as a director, you should have an idea of what you want your story to look like. I like when I like to figure out the film with the director. So if the director wants this shot that way, and we can shoot it that way, and then maybe in the next take I give it to you a different way. I like when we can work that way, or kind of just talk through the shots together. But you have to have an idea. I don't like when people kind of just like, hey, yeah, like this is my script, kind of do your thing, because it's not my story, and the way my brain works is not the same way. So as a director, everyone should have some type of design book or some idea of what they want their film to look like. So this is the design book for a rom-com that I just shot a week and a half ago. So it's called Stir Crazy. So here she kind of just gives a quick summary of what she wants a little bit. And now she gets into kind of for the conversation scenes and what she wants it to kind of look like in the house. So and then she has reference. So she has reference for everyone. So as you can see, for like the comedic moment, she referenced class act over here, some more kid and play. I'm not sure what the bottom movies are. Um, and she has a masquerade scene that we shot, so she put some reference in for that, as well as the panic attack scene. There's a ritual scene that happened, and then all the VFX stuff and how she wants those things to pop up on screen as well. So this was her design book. This is, I probably shouldn't be showing you this, but I'm gonna do it anyway. This is the treatment that the director sent me for a music video that I have coming up here in a couple weeks. It's a song where you have a story in the first half of the video, and then it transitions into a different song. So almost like two stories in one. So he has all those things in his reference and what he wants here, and the themes. And then we go into the next song here and what he wants and the themes as well, and how he wants it to be shot. And then this is kind of some gear that he put kind of as what he knew as a director. And then we went in later and ironed out what gear we'll actually use and which lenses and things of that sort. So for the camera, instead of using this Blackmagic pocket camera, we're going to use my Red Komodo. We are going to use a Movi. We may or may not use this drone. We're going to use a Dana Dolly. And instead of, I think, tip and promise, I believe we're going to use glimmer glass, which is a type of diffusion, which I'll get into in a moment here. So this is the best design book I've ever received, like, in life. This is for a film I shot back in 2017 called Orchid Boys, and I really enjoy when I get to work with that director because he's a director who knows what he wants. He can also see for the edit, and he also understands cinematography, and from a technology standpoint and as from an artistic standpoint. So he can truly let you know what he wants and what he's looking for, and then you guys get to we got to figure out and kind of play. We did, like, he used to be my roommate as well, so we did really extensive lighting tests before this film. So we just got to just sit and kind of watch. So he kind of spoiled me because he really set the bar with giving me this. You're as a director though, your design book doesn't have to be this thorough, but the more thorough the better, always. So so this was his design book. He also gave his own cinematography lookbook, so that was nice to have. I created my own, and then we kind of combined them, but he did have his own, which never happens. I've never had a director give me this, but it's great.
LaDawn, do you
Yes,
mind just speaking a little bit slower for Taina, who is translating for us?
I'm sorry. Yes, I will. I will try to slow down.
Thank you so much.
And then this is a still from the camera test we were doing. So. All right, it's pretty extensive, so I'm not gonna scroll through the whole thing, but as you can see, it's pretty thorough. It's about, I think, 80 slides, something like that, maybe a little more. So yes, as a director, always, even if you approach, even if a director approaches you and they don't have a design book, they should make one as well. Now I'm going to get into some of the lookbooks I've made. Like I said, the more thorough, the better. But you don't always have prep time for your movie or your music video or commercial. You kind of just have to not really wing it, but you might only have a day or two. Sometimes you might get a week. Sometimes you might get a full 3 weeks. Sometimes you may get a month, depending on the budget. But you should always try to make a small lookbook, even if you don't have much time, so that the director can know kind of what's going on in your head and the vision that you have for it, and vice versa. So this here is going into a lookbook for a music video that is kind of postponed. We've shot 2 days for it, but we have another day to shoot. But because of the pandemic, we've had to kind of wait and reschedule a lot of things. So this is the color palette that I chose for the video. And this is some inspiration for the way I wanted it to look. This is a painting or photograph by Ernie Barnes. Same here. And these are a couple stills from the film Ray. And that was the only pre-production I got to do for that. So this is my lookbook for the film Stir Crazy, the rom-com that we just went through. So as far as the filters that I was going to use, the diffusion, this is a reference of that filter being used. This is the Glimmer Glass diffusion filter that I was going to use and for what scene. And this is the filter that I was going to use for the rest of the scene. So Glimmer Glass, a quarter. And here you can see the comparison without the filter and with the filter. There's also a video here. And same here for Glimmer Glass 1 and no filter. So you can also get Glimmer Glass in an 1/8 as well, or I want to say like 2. These were the headshots of the actors. So one of the first things I figure out when I am shooting a film, I read the script, just to read the story as a once off, and then I go back through it, and then I read it and start looking for visuals and things of that nature, and then I probably read it a third time to figure out what colors do I see the actors in. Most directors, obviously, you get a costume designer, things like that, but you see certain colors when you have a film, so I like to put those colors in. I like to figure out a color palette for each scene, things of that nature. So I always choose a palette and choose what those colors mean. So this was for the kitchen. I always put why I chose the color and what it means and why for the specific scene as well. And I didn't get to do it for every scene, but I made sure to always do it for the characters. So for Candy, I chose blue and gold, but she actually ended up being more reds, pinks, and purples. And then initially, I chose blue and red and kind of violet for the main character. For the character Ether. But Ether ended up being, I think she kind of got some blue and purples, but there was a little green in there too. And then Zenith, the main character, she had a lot of green in her house. She didn't have to wear green per se, but as far as her atmosphere, there's a lot of green. She wore a lot of yellow with the green as well. She also kind of, I think, had a pink and orange dress in there too. But not all the time do, just because I choose the colors doesn't mean that these colors get chosen. It's just kind of what I see when I first read and kind of go through the script, which is why I always say, that as a director, you should have your design book, because you could be thinking completely different colors than what I'm thinking. So for the lighting, I didn't get to do it for every scene, but for the scenes I did get to do it for, just kind of picture the location here, the color palette that I wanted, and then how I want it to be lit. It's not a big bathroom, so we didn't really need a lot. All we needed was a china ball from above and a little filler here to the right. For the burlesque scene, this is how we wanted it to be lit. So shades of purples and reds. And here's just how I said we would like the room. So black the room, spotlight the dancer, put a red gel over the key light, a little bit of color temperature blue over the fill. And at the time, we didn't know which room we were going to shoot in, so TBD. And then this was just for the living room. So I wanted to light from the outside, so we would have had a couple stands out here going through this window and this window, but we actually didn't end up getting the stand. So we still lit as if we were lighting from the outside, but we used a stair tubes instead, and we also used a 4-bank keynote. And these are just locations. And these are all my reference. So for the anxiety attack scenes, these are kind of elongated hallways to kind of show just that emptiness and kind of how I saw it as well. For the ritual scene, which is also the bathtub scene, just some other reference that came to mind. The burlesque scene had shot reference, and then and for the character Ether, was a character who we didn't really see until the end of the movie. So this is kind of how Ether is portrayed up until her reveal. There's a few montages introing the film. So I thought of some films that I've worked on. So as a camera operator, I came up on a film called Love.com back in 2017. The cinematographer for that film was Hans Charles, who was also a graduate from Howard's program. So that's where these top 2 shots come from. Some video game reference because the girl is playing video games as well in the montage in the film. She's writing at some point, reading, etc. And then in another montage, she's getting ready for a date. So these stills are from a film that I got to cam operate on in November called Death Saved My Life. It was a Lifetime movie, so you guys can stream it online if you like. I was a camera operator, and Hans Charles was also the DP, and the gaffer on that film was Mike Wilson, also a Howard grad. So we love. I love to be able to work with them because they all came from above me. So every time I'm on set with them, I learn a lot, and I almost always reference either the shots or the lighting or some other technique or some other takeaway that I've learned. So, maybe how to operate better handheld or how to just smooth my motions, things of that nature. So these are some stills from that film. And then just a still from Sex and the City. We had a park scene as well, and the way of the film, the way it's written, it reminded me a lot of 500 Days of Summer. So that's where this reference comes from with Zoe Deschanel. And then for all the texting and FaceTime calls that happen throughout the film, these are some shots from love.com. This still here is from a short I shot called Cult Following. And then this is just some old reference. So that's my lookbook for Stir Crazy. This one's not as in depth, but this is for a film I shot called The Problem with Aaron. They just finished a rough cut of the film, so hopefully it should be coming to you fairly soon. So I ended up using Canon's cinema lenses. So this was just a reference of the 14 millimeter. And then these is just some shot reference. So 2 of these are from a show called Gypsy. These 2 are some Ozu references as far as how you want to cut between shots. This is a shot from that film that I shot as well called Cult Following. This is a still from a film called Orchid Boys. So there's only 2 stills here. A lot of the camera tests we didn't make it to the Google Drive just because the camera we're using is a Red and the files are really big. They take like 24 hours to upload to Google Drive. But these are just some shots of us testing out how to get a shot directly from above. So I thought about mounting the camera upside down on a Dana dolly. However, in order to get directly upside down, we would have needed what you call is an L plate. So instead we used a crane. So then this is the kind of camera test from the living room scenes. These are just taken with my cell phone, and then we took actual camera tests with the camera and the lens that we're going to use with the camera that we were shooting with. So for the color palette, initially this is kind of what my idea was. Very kind of bleak, kind of almost sickly in a way. It's a story about a woman who is signing her divorce papers. So it's it's her, how she starts her day and how she ends her day. So it's only over a day of a 24-hour span. And it's a little bit rainy. It's not really a sunshiny day. So these are the colors I chose. A lot of muted colors. And these are some references. So, and then as far as for the wardrobe of the characters, this is the color palette I had for the main actress. And, what those colors mean. And then these are the colors that I chose for Rice. It's very important that you have a specific reason for choosing colors. Like, don't choose red because you like red. Like, I like to choose a lot of orange and yellow, specifically because orange and yellow are the first colors that the eye sees. So it's very attractive. So to me, always when I'm explaining it to my students, what does it say if you open up on a scene and there's a big bouquet of yellow roses just kind of sitting like in the countertop, and you meet the main actress, who she doesn't have to be wearing yellow, but the main actress, once you actually truly meet her, tends to be very nasty and mean. So what does it say when she's surrounded by all these inviting things, and then once you're lowered in, you're introduced to another side of her? I like the color red because red can be very romantic, but it can also be very dark. It can be very mysterious as well. Blue can be very cool. It can be very melancholy, but it can show up in a rom-com and mean the exact opposite, because as we know, rom-coms tend to be lit very bright. And then this is another lookbook for a film I shot. I didn't get to do much for this lookbook, but as long as you can do something. I wanted to shoot it with anamorphics. We ended up not using those, but we still use some pretty good lenses. I think we use not Cooks, I think Snyder's. So this is just some shot reference of the 40mm lens that's anamorphic. So and then as far as the filters and rags I wanted to use, I was going to use Snyder diffusion. I was going to use classic black soft. So this is just an eighth versus it clear. This is a half versus clear. This is 1 versus clear. So the heavier you get, the more diffused it is. And this is 2. And then this is just some other diffusion, full soft and half frost. And then this is the types of rag that I wanted to use. Color palette. So this was the overall color palette for this film. And this is the morning reference and what I wanted it to look like. And then this is what I had in mind for the night scenes. And again, for the kitchen scene, there's just some more shots of Carrie. And then these are the location photos. Okay. And then that's pretty much it. So now we're kind of going to get into some of the results. So this is one of the stills from the music video that I showed you guys that I only got to do the 3 stills for as far as a lookbook with the Ernie Barnes references. So with this, I shot this on my red Komodo, and the lenses we used are some older Russian lenses, but I have them adapted. So it's a set from this group called Iron Glass Adapters. And then I included this one because, sometimes you have an idea and it doesn't quite get executed well. So for me, the shots, it's a little grainy. It's darker because there's not as much light. I'm not in love with the floor either. The camera movement of the shot is amazing. We shot it on a 32-foot jib, so crane, built out, and it's top down, and it's spinning as the 2 dancers are dancing through the frame. So the movement of it is great, but as far as the way the shot looks, I didn't quite execute it in the way in which I wanted. So this is a still from Ringer Heart, as well as this one. This too. This film was a challenge for me because I didn't have a gaffer. As a cinematographer, when you're shooting a short, like get a gaffer. I tried, just no one was available to you, but you need a gaffer. It's very hard to be the DP, and though you make the lighting plan, but to physically have to go and do the lighting yourself, something's gonna lack, whether it's the shots or the lights or both aspects, because you're stretching yourself very thin. So, and this was the first time I physically had to light do day for night. So all these night scenes, which is this scene here, and the first scene, so this one, all happened during the daytime. We blacked the windows, and I took a quasar bulb, which is a tube light, and I stuck it in the kind of right corner of the blinds once we blacked it out, and I had it on a dimmer. And on the left side here, I just had a desktop lamp on, like a regular lamp, and I screwed in a Kino bulb that is set to 3200 Kelvin. So, and I like, that you get the blue on the front here and you get the orange on the back. But as far as the blinds here go, I'm not in love with it. But this still hasn't been like color corrected or anything like that. It's straight from the camera. Same with this frame. And I included this one because, like I said, sometimes things don't work out. And for this scene, we had some kind of like blue light, a little bit, not a lot, coming from the outside patio, which is off to the right here. And we lit with these two practical lamps. But overall, the image is kind of flat. And it's because essentially they were initially supposed to be watching TV, but we didn't have we didn't have a TV on, and we didn't have a light in front here. It would have been in front of this table here to kind of mimic the uh, the commercials, or the TV going. The colors change to kind of give them that light on the front here. This is a still from The Problem with Aaron. And this film was a lot of fun to shoot. It was also challenging. We had a lot of, not necessarily dream sequences, but moments where, she would either be dreaming or she would kind of just go off into her own little world, into her thoughts. So it was fun and a little challenging in a sense, because I shot those scenes with a prism. So during those scenes, I would physically put a prism in front of the lens to kind of give it a different effect. So here, all of this is created from the prism. This as well. And then this is a still from the film Orchid Boys. I included this one because not a lot of times, sometimes you just get lucky, especially, if you're in film school, you'll get actors who know each other. So these two actors had acted together plenty of other times. They were both in the theater department, and they were actually friends. So a couple of times on set, we would have these moments where we would be getting ready to roll the shot, or just kind of getting some last minute items set up, and we would just roll because they would be having intimate moments like this. Like in this moment, they were just laughing and kind of having fun. So we got a lot of candid takes that way. So we got really lucky that these actors had really good chemistry and that they knew each other. There's some other stills from the film, as well as this one. This one was fun to get because for this film we had to watch light. And the way our apartment set up, we were 9 floors up, but the sun, it rose one way and it sets the other way, but it always set in our living room. So I would always sit on the balcony and kind of watch reflections, or we'd be in the kitchen and notice that we can not only see the balcony, but also see the gradients on the window. So when we made this film, it's a film that's very poetic in a sense. It's a lot of voiceover. But it's about a long distance relationship. So it's almost like a visual poem in a sense. But in this, we were just kind of like, you know what? We just want to make some pretty images and like shoot through all the reflections that we stare at every single day. So I think in the scene, he starts with him taking tea out of the microwave to take to him which is all the way on the balcony, and we kind of rack focus until we get to this last shot here. So it was a lot of fun to do this film. This is another kind of one of those shots. This shot is from the outside balcony area. The character comes out of the door and he's frustrated, so he leans over the balcony. But when he leans over, he created this nice little gap of space here for us to see Austin back here. Our window was dirty. We could have cleaned that, but you know, this was I think in 2000, 2017, 2018, so it was a while ago. And then this is still from the film Stir Crazy that I just shot. So this is what we ended up doing for a lot of Ether before she was revealed. This is the main actress Zenith. So for this shot, this is a shot that was lit with the China ball, so it was just above the tub. And for this particular scene, I had the crane as well. It was only built to be 8 feet, and I just had it leaning over her in the tub, and I start the shot tracking on the candles around the tub, and it lands above her before she sinks down into the water. So it was the last shot of the day. It was the last shot of the short. So it was kind of like this moment of finally building to there. So yeah. This is the burlesque scene. And then I included this still just to kind of show where I first started. This is a film that I directed like when I first got to grad school, because I tried to initially, you know, not direct things and just say I was going to write the scripts and I'll shoot it myself and find a director. But as a cinematographer, you know, some people really do enjoy doing both, being a cinematographer and directing. I am not one of those people, but I had to actually direct to figure that out. And it's not that I'm awful. I just, and not that I don't even necessarily know how to talk to talent, but I'm of very little words on set unless I have something that I want you to change. So in being that way and in focusing more on the camera and the lighting, for that sort, you don't pull the best performances out of the actors. So if you are a cinematographer and have interest in being a cinematographer, you should also try directing. So one, you can know if you like it, but two, just so you can understand what a director does better as well too. You should, you know, the first thing they kind of tell you when you get to grad school, or even when you get on set, is that no one should really not necessarily know more than you, but there shouldn't be anything that you're confused about or that you don't know when you're on set. And if you are, that just means ask a question, because we're all there to kind of help each other grow and learn. So you kind of just shouldn't be walking around like, oh yeah, like, you know, I don't know what that is. Oh, maybe Google it when I get home. You know, just always ask. Film is a very collaborative thing, and being able to not necessarily give back, but being able to help someone and give them information is really the best part about it. It's all about sharing knowledge. Like, I go to set and I geek out about other people's kits. I'm always kind of just looking around like, what do you have in your kit that I don't have in mine? So always be looking for that. But gonna watch this. It's a really short.
The gray area is defined as an ill-defined situation or field, not readily conforming to a category or a set of rules.
Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name, thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Forgive us this day our daily bread, but forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those who trespass against us.
I'm Nurse Jones. You
But
must
lead
be
us not into
My favorite place is inside of you.
temptation. For thine is the kingdom and the power and the glory forever and ever. Amen.
So I just wanted to put that in there to kind of also show that pretty much you're always gonna, like, for me, what I've noticed with me and my work anyway is that the same lighting techniques show up, the same shot selections, and the same, you kind of really, you kind of grow into your own aesthetic over time, but the same shots types, the lighting and things of that nature, they all reoccur in the things that I work on. So it's always good to not really remember where you start, but even if you don't think something is good necessarily, or if you didn't finish something, don't just throw it away. So because this was like done back in like 2015, I think, maybe 2016, and I've done the same lighting technique like so many times, or tried to. So I realized is that you kind of keep doing something until you feel you've mastered it, or till you found a different kind of challenge. So even for me as a cinematographer, a lot of the things I work on tend to be not very dramatic, but in that type of like genre. So shooting this rom-com that I just shot a week and a half ago was very challenging to me. It's a different type of movie. So, and like I said, your shots should mean things, your colors should mean things. So I had to kind of go back to school. I had to be like, okay, well, what do rom-coms look like? What do they feel like? That's always my thing. If I want you to feel my work, so how do I get you to feel, this romantic comedy? How do I pull on your heartstrings and make you laugh at the same time? How do I make you sad but also make you laugh? Um, so that was a challenge. I got it done. It was fun. I'm excited to see how it turns out. So. And then this is just the process, because when you're on set, you should always take pictures. So take pictures of your lighting setups, take pictures of the cameras you use, because you never know when you need that lighting set again on another set, whether it could be an interview, it can be a documentary, it can be a commercial, it could be just you doing a camera test at home. And then, of course, every camera you use is different. So try to document those as well. I don't get to do it as much as I used to, but I try to take at least a still of the camera in one lighting setup on every shoot that I go to. So this is some behind the scenes of Rend Your Heart. This is some behind the scenes of The Problem with Aaron. So this is the crane that I was talking about. I think this one was built to be 12 for this day, 12 feet. And so, like I said, I shot with the prism. So when we weren't using the prism, the AC would take it and go take pictures through it on the phone. So here I'm operating the jib, but you can actually see the location and position of the camera here. So this is the same film. This is us setting up. We're getting ready to set up for a really long dolly shot. I want to say we built it to be, the rails to be 14, and we went from all the way the back to the top. But we didn't have them on stands because we had to be this low. So what we did was we took sandbags and placed them over the rails so that they would stay in place. This is some stills from that film Love.com as well. As a camera operator too, when I'm not DPing, I tend to reference a lot of the shots for things that I've worked on as well. So they always are just shots that, there's different ways to get this shot. You can get this shot from 5 different camera positions in a way almost. So it depends on your location and how it's set up, and what camera you're using, or in what lenses, etc. So I like to always reference those, especially on the sets where I really grow as a camera operator, where I really take things away, because you have jobs where you go and it might just be an interview, so you might not really take nothing away that day. It might just be a job. That does happen once you kind of get to a certain level. So for this film, we used the Alexa Mini with RA Master Primes. And it was a really heavy, especially this day. But I learned a lot about handheld filmmaking that day, and how you should hold your arms kind of closest to your body, and where you should operate and how you should move. Um, this is a still from a film that I just came out, I think 3 weeks ago at this point. This film really grew me because we had a lot of um, movie shots. So for this particular shot here, instead of just using an actual movie, we mounted it to some speed rail. So just a rail, the same rail that you see people use on like Dana Dollies. And we had two operators on the left and the right, and they really just walked the shot up and over. But because the camera was on the movie, I had the remote, so I had to operate the camera while they did the move. So it took us like 4 takes, plus some practice to get, and plus we had to, line directly up with the actors as well to truly get this shot. But this is the midpoint of the shot, and then this is the ending of the shot. And I hope I can show y'all these, but they posted these on social media, so hopefully they're not watching and they're upset right now. But these shots really grew me as an op, especially this one here. And I tried to do a similar setup the very next week on the short that I was shooting. So that's why I say always take pictures of setups and things of that nature. uh he was kind of crazed and manic in this scene, but the scene that I needed it for was an anxiety attack scene. But same setup, different concepts. But this shot here, this is the setup that got us that. And then this is just another car setup because we needed a car shot, but we didn't have a car rig. So the gaffer Mike Wilson again put together this rig here. And we didn't go through the lookbook for this, but this is a short that I was the gaffer on. And this one was really fun to do. And it grew me in a lot of ways as a gaffer. As a cinematographer, you have to understand light. So this is what the shot actually came out looking like. And this was the setup for it. So there was an aperture light, a 300D, and I had some minus green. So a gel over it, and it was like some type of pole, but not quite a pole. It was like a pipe, I guess, but it wasn't a full pipe hanging out the wall back there. So I clamped it onto that, and then here is the color spike that I'm talking about. It's just another tube light. So I threw it here to add some fill, and that's what got us this shot to the right. And this is for a show that takes place up in Baltimore. It's called the Thespian Series. Season 2 just came out on Amazon Prime. Check that out. Sometimes I gaff on it, but for this particular day, I was the DP. But this was fun to kind of come in and plan the lighting with the gaffer for the day, because we used a lot of practicals. We got to use the bulbs in these top lights here and here. So we got to control that. And I had a 1x1 LED light at the far end of the table that you really couldn't see to just enhance the window that was in front of us because it was a dreary day. This is just a conversation shot. This was nice. There's a window here, but we had a light on the inside, bringing some light in, and then we used this nice white wall here. White's not really good for anything except for bouncing. Like white walls are the worst thing in the world. If I ever buy a house, I'm never gonna have a white wall in that house. They're all gonna be like gray or something. But this is just the reverse of that shot. And like I said, always take pictures of your cameras. So I only included 2, but I have like 50 pictures of cameras in my phone right now, but I didn't want to overwhelm you guys. So this is a Alexa Mini. This is the LF version. So it's fully built out here. Here is the Teradek, which is the wireless transmission. This is the battery plate or the adapter for the plate with the battery on the back. You have your EVF over here. This is the lenses we were using. We were using anamorphics. We're using the Orion anamorphics. And then this here is the follow focus.
LaDawn,
Yes.
could you maybe explain what parts of the camera are? Because I don't think everyone understands the technical jargon.
I got you. I will when I grab
Thank
my
you.
camera. Just from a picture, so it's kind of hard to do that because I can't really point out everything. But yeah, so this is a follow focus is how you keep the image clear or not, so it's not blurry when you're staring at it. And this here is the matte box. So a matte box is where you would put your filters. So when I was kind of going through and talking about the glimmer glass or the classic black soft, it's a piece of glass that goes right here. And then this, when I mentioned the movie, this is what that is. So this type of camera is a red camera. It's a red Scarlet. And this is kind of what you have to build it into, and you have to balance it. These are the batteries for it here. And then the monitor, my head is blocking it, but that's where the monitor is. So these two cameras here, these are also red cameras. These are the red Komodos. So they're set up on a JL Fisher dolly right now, so that both cameras can operate on the dolly at the same time. So what you see here and here is the viewfinder or the EVF. You have the matte box here and here. What else do we see? So this here is the Teradek. The Teradek is the wireless transmission, video transmission, so that your AC, your assistant camera, can pull focus, and so that you can also send a picture to Video Village. That's where the director, the script supervisor, and any other people of importance will be watching the take happen. So that's the Teradek for this camera. This is the Teradek for this camera. So the reason why there's tape all over both of these, the A camera is always going to have red tape over it, and the B camera is always going to be blue. If you have a third camera, that'll be yellow. The next one will be like green, and so forth. So you want to label everything that has to do with that camera, so that in the end, when you're wrapping up, you guys aren't missing pieces. So that's why you see tape on the tripod head. That's why you see tape on the rails, on the matte box. This is called a cinescope here, and it helps the AC when they're pulling focus. It just tells them, if you point it at the direction of what you're looking for, it tells them how many feet away the person is, so that they can accurately pull your focus. But most of the time, cinescopes are not accurate, so it's a catch-22 there. This here's the monitor as well. If you look back here, this is a battery, but it's on the back of another monitor, and that monitor, which is here, it's on the back of a Teradek. So the monitor's here, and that's for the dolly grip. That's the person moving the dolly so that they have their own picture, so they can see, where to stop, and things of that sort.
Hey, LaDawn, it's Lakeisha. I just wanted to ask that just a reminder that we have Taina, who's not necessarily familiar with all the terms used in cinematography and lighting, and
yeah, I'm trying.
She may be searching for some of the words. So just a reminder, maybe explain as you introduce some of the terms as well. Yeah. And also keep a lookout. We do have a few questions. I'm not sure if you're open to taking questions, but I did see a question inside of the chat. So I'm almost have a look at the chat too.
Yeah, so I have like one slide left, and then I was going to open it up to questions.
Great. Thank you. Sorry, just wanted to remind you for that. We're going into the second hour, so I just wanted to make sure.
Yeah, no, you're all good. So this is that monitor. So a dolly grip is just a person who pushes this kind of Fisher dolly thing that the cameras are sitting on. So yeah. And then here are just some, I'm always screenshotting camera things that I might see on like social media or whatever, just because film technology or film jargon can be complicated or confusing if you don't know it. So when I'm scrolling through like Instagram or something, and I see a picture that may explain it better, or in terms that are not as confusing as full film terms, I guess, I always screenshot them to send them out to my students. So this is just explaining what your f-stops are, or your t-stops, which is your aperture. So when you're at 1.4, it means you're wide open, which means that the lens, the camera lens, can take in as much light as possible, versus when you're at a 16, it's pretty much the shape of a pinhole. So that's the amount of light that's getting to the camera lens. So this is just something explaining your aspect ratio. So it has a HD TV, it has a 1.85 here. It's really tiny, you can't see it. And then this is just a camera movement guide. So if you're moving forwards, it's a dolly. If you're staying on axis, but moving left and right, it's a pan. If you're staying on axis and moving up and down, it's a tilt. You have a roll. A truck is when you physically move over, and then a boom or a jibs, like up or down. But that's the top, and then the bottom half is just what usually your clients think everything is when they're telling you to do moves on set. So yeah, that is my presentation. So if you have any questions, I have all the answers in the world for you guys. I'm trying to go through the chat here.
You've got a lot of compliments.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
I think someone wanted to know, how do you get your gigs? How do you get your jobs? Because they're a freelancer. I'll find the person's name, and they'd just like to know, how do you get your jobs and your gigs?
Perfect. So it's a lot about who you know, but when you're first starting out, it's easy. It's easy. It's kind of hard. It depends on what you're willing to do on set. But I, in the beginning, and still sometimes, get a lot of jobs from Facebook. There are a ton of film groups on Facebook that they'll place, what role they're looking for. So what position, whether they're looking for a DP or a camera op, or if they're looking for a producer. Or
I'm going to jump in. A DP is a director of photography.
It's a director of photography, also a cinematographer. If they're looking for a sound operator or a sound mixer, just whatever the job is, they'll post about it, and they'll usually say, send me a direct message or send me an email, and you'll email them like, your resume if you have that, or if you have a reel, a cinematography reel. So, a compilation of some of the things you've shot. You'll send that in as well. So I've got a few jobs from that. I've got a few AC assistant camera jobs from that. I've gotten some camera operator jobs from that as well. But there are a ton of groups. For if you're in the DMV area, there's a group called Nat Geo. There's like 3 or 4 different DC filmmaker groups. Me personally, I'm in some groups for LA. I'm in some groups for New York, as well as the DMV area. I'm in some groups that are international as well. You never know. Sometimes they can be looking for it. COVID's harder now, so there's not as much travel, but you can apply to any job you see. And if they have the budget and if they like your work, they will, pay for your flight to work there. They pay for your travel as well. So Facebook, there's a website called Story Hunter that's geared towards a lot of like documentaries, some commercial, like small commercial type of shoots. So if you have Story Hunter, that helps as well. People used to tell me Mandy.com, but I've never had a Mandy.com account, and I also hear they make you pay now. So I'm not really a fan of paying for job sites. What else? I've gotten one. I gaffed a short film up in New York called Kids Who Don't Ride Bike. A gaffer is the person who does the lighting. called Kids Don't Ride Bike a couple years ago, and I just found that on Twitter, my friend had retweeted a guy who was looking for actors, and I happened to see their kind of GoFundMe or the Kickstarter, and I was just like, are you looking for a DP? And he wasn't, but he needed a gaffer, and I actually knew the guy who was DPing the film. We had just worked on a leukemia event the summer before, so once you start interworking the industry, it's all very connected, and you'll always meet somebody who knows someone you know. So that's the nice thing about it. And then you'll kind of just start getting emails about jobs from people you've kind of never met sometimes, and who just got your name,
Yeah.
via word of mouth.
What's a gaffer?
A gaffer is the person who does the lighting.
Okay, so that's the head of the lighting
Yes,
department?
head of the lighting department. So the way the
Okay.
department goes, for camera, it's you have your DP, your cinematographer. You'll have a camera operator. Depending on the shoot and the budget, you might have two cameras. So then you'll have two camera operators. You're gonna have your assistant camera, and then you have your second AC, which is your second assistant camera. Your first AC is going to be the one who pulls focus, things of that sort. They build the cameras. Um, the second AC is there to support the AC. They also do all the slating in the beginning of each scene. So that clapper that you guys always see, the second AC is who does the slates. They also take camera notes typically. They help build the monitors for Video Village and move those around for the different locations. They both ACs kind of monitor their batteries. Usually, you kind of have a working kind of dynamic. And then for the lighting department, the head of the lighting department is going to be, the gaffer. And then obviously the head of the gaffer is the DP, but the head of lighting is the gaffer. And then you have grips who work under the gaffer, whoever he, she, or they are.
Thank you so much. We've got another really interesting question, and it's from someone called, let me go up, Heru. How do you approach your camera and lighting tests?
Okay. So, for my camera test, I like to be there with the camera that I'm actually shooting with and with the lenses that I'm shooting with. But sometimes that's not possible. So any cinema camera, even if you don't have a cinema camera, if you have a stills camera, I'll take that. There's an app on your phone that you can get called Artemis. I'm about to buy it myself, but I don't have it yet. I believe it's $29 though. And you have your phone, but you can pick any camera you want. So if you want to shoot with the RA or Red or whatever, if you want to do the mini or the full version, the Alexa, or if you want between a Red Komodo or a Red Gemini or a Panasonic camera, whatever camera you want, you can choose it. And typically whatever lenses you want to use as well, you can have those lenses, and you can, once you make those selections, you'll essentially get an image that's supposed to mimic what that'll look like. So that helps for camera tests as well, especially if you're on location, doing location scouting. So that's a way to do it. I like to do it, if I have time, bringing the actual camera and the lenses that I'm going to shoot with, and I like to do it when the director is doing acting rehearsals and blocking rehearsals, so I can figure out exactly and see myself where the actors are going to be standing in the room and how they're going to move around, because that will, change your shot. So that's how I approach my camera test. As far as lighting test it's a bit more complicated. So for Orchid Boys, we know we wanted to use, a lot of colors. We kind of wanted to have that the red and blue and kind of bleed into purple. So we had tungsten lights, not LED lights. We had, I want to say, some RA600s or 300s, I believe. In our dining room of our apartment, we made it our equipment room. We never kind of furnished it, and we just had a friend kind of sit, in, and we figured out how we wanted to light. So we tried lighting from different positions and different angles. We removed gels, so sometimes we had blue, sometimes we had red. For another film that I was directing, I wanted to play with green light. So we tried out a green gel, and there's different levels to it. So if you're trying out a blue gel, which is colored temperature blue, you can get half, you can get full, you can get a quarter, things of that nature. You can get something called theatrical blue, which is like a deep blue, but it has like a hint of purple almost. So there's a gel booklet. Let me grab it really quick. It's going to be a swatch book. I have two. One is from well, they're both from Roscoe, but this one's smaller than this one. So it has all of the gels available, and it has their numbers and things of that nature listed there. They also have a really cool app for your phone now that's free, that gives you all this within the click of a button, so you don't have to carry around 2 or 3 swatch books everywhere you go. So that's how I approach my lighting test. And then also it depends on how you want to do lighting, because you can do standard traditional lighting, or very specifically, I always remember Brad telling us about Selma, and for the woman who played Coretta Scott King, she likes to be top lit, so he had to do camera tests with her with the light directly above her to see how the light's gonna fall on her. Right. I hope that answers your question. All right.
That was brilliant.
Yes, and then I see one from, is this Alfie? On average, how much does freelance work pay? Yes, you will be able to quit your day job. I would say quit your day job with a plan. Um, but it depends. So when I first started out, there's low budget things, and then there's things that are fully funded. So when you first start out, you might take lower rates just because you want to get on set and know people and get to working, and kind of build. Some people take free jobs. I haven't. I was lucky, and I didn't have to work that many free jobs. Most of the jobs that I did for free were by choice. It wasn't like I want to be on your set and you're not paying and I have to deal with it. But you will be able to quit your day job. When I first started out as an AC, I think I started out on like a low budget thing, so I thought that ACs made $250 a day, but a day is going to be a 12-hour day. Typically, most days are 10-hour days. I don't. It's very rare that I work 12-hour days, unless it's like on a short or a feature film or that nature. But for the most part, days will be 10 hours, which is really nice. Once you start getting into like documentary work, sometimes the days are like 8-hour days. Then it's really nice, but it sucks because you get used to that, and then you go work a 12 or 14, and it's like you never did it, and you're like crying when you go home. But a PA, which is a production assistant, their rate is like 250 per 10 or 12. So a low budget AC rate, depending on what you're willing to take, it could be that. It could also be 300 or 350. Most ACs average here make between $500 and $600 a day. That does not include their kit fee. Your kit fee is if you have to bring your computer, if you are also going to double as the person who's going to be doing all the media dumping and things of that nature. As a camera operator, for a low budget as a camera operator, I've made uh, 500 or 600. At most, I've made 8, which is nice. If we're using my camera, then I get to charge a rental rate for my camera, so that's also nice. Same if I'm the gaffer, or if I'm bringing lights or sound equipment, you get to charge a rental rate for your equipment. But yeah, as a DP, some DPs make $1,000 a day, and that's just for their body. That does not include their equipment. Some make more than that. As far as a jib operator, that's a person who just solely only operates cranes or jibs. They can make anywhere from 1,000 just for themselves to 2,000, because that's how much their jib costs. It really depends on the budget. You're not going to get your full rate every time, but once you get to a point where you start getting your full rate way more than way more than you're getting lower budget things, that's a really good time to quit your job. I quit my day job at a perfect time because I went to grad school. And I kind of realized that I needed to freelance more, during my second year in grad school. But I was a TA, so I was teaching and still working my full-time job as a manager in the A6 shoe store. So I didn't have any time, and when I worked on set, I would work 8 hours at work and then go spend 12 hours on set and then wake up and go teach a class or work in the tech center. So I was drained. But during my third year, which was my thesis year, I was shooting a film to graduate, so I had way more time. So that summer, I kind of was just walking into work one day and I was making a Snapchat and I was like, bro, I don't want to be here. And I was like, I make this every day. And I had enough money saved to where I was like, well, I can quit and be okay. So because when you start freelancing anywhere, even when you move, you can be established and move somewhere, and it's like starting all the way over, because living somewhere and working somewhere is just completely different things, no matter who you know in any industry. So I had a little cushion to kind of hold me over for that first year by me still being in school. So I tell people all the time that if you're in school, school's a great time to start freelancing, so that when you graduate, you're not just like, oh, okay, I have my degree, what do I do next? You have a community already. You know where to go, you know where to turn. Um, and a lot of, different states and things like that, they have different filmmaking communities and programs. Like DC has this DC Film and TV office. Maryland has the Maryland Filmmakers Office and things of that nature. And there's also unions. I haven't gone the union route, but that's just because I battle back and forth with it every day. I'm still up in the air about joining, but I probably will sometime here soon. So you will be able to quit your day job for sure. Cool. And then Asia says, as a cinematographer, what should a director have prepared? So as like I said earlier, I don't know if you joined, but as a director, outside of having, your script or whatever, if you're the writer of the script, outside of presenting that, you should also have a design book. You should have an idea of, what you want your film to look like. Even if you're a new director and you might not know all the film jargon, the director of the film I just shot, she didn't know. She was very green. Green means like, she's very new. So there's a lot of this stuff she didn't understand, and she was kind of learning on the fly. So she didn't know to ask certain questions. So, like when it came down to making her shot list, she was just like, oh, I thought you were going to make it. And I was like, like, it's your film. Like, I can tell you the shots that I see and we can talk about these specific shots, but or you can make me one. It doesn't mean we don't even have to follow the shot list, but it's just a general idea of what you want your film to look like. But she had never made what's called a line script. And she wasn't told to make a line script, and she hadn't made a shooting script and things like that. So she didn't know how to arrive at her shot list. So I would say just at minimum, have your script and your design booklet. And then, if there's some things you don't know, just let the DP know that up front, so they can offer you grace and patience and, kind of help and help put a, if so for me, I was also a producer on that short. So as far as like, because I knew that director was great and I knew what type of team to put around her, that could help her, shine and get, make sure that she got her ideas and her film across the way that she wanted. I do have some books here, if you guys want to write them down. So for my intro to film classes or the cinematography classes that I teach, I have everybody buy this book. It is called Cinematography, Theory, and Practice. And that is by Blaine Brown. And then this one's super technical. It's not super technical, but it's more technical. And then this one is not as technical, it's more broad. And it is Cinematography for Directors. And that is by Jacqueline D. Frost. This is another book I have. It's called Master Shots Volume 3, and it is by Christopher Kinworthy. Yes, I'll place them all in the chat. Or is there a way to like send out a mass email after this where I can just email you all the book list? I'll inquire about that. But yeah, as how did I get into teaching? I got into teaching after grad school. Well, not even really after, kind of before. So the summer before I moved to DC, I just kind of got a job teaching like some intro to film photography to some people, and then I ended up. So that gave me some teaching experience. But in grad school, when I became a TA, I got to actually teach a course. So that experience plus the experience I already had once I graduated with my master's, I was able to kind of apply to for some positions at a couple universities. So I teach right now at Montgomery College. It's a community college. I teach script writing and a kind of intro to film class. And last year I actually taught at Howard. So I taught intro to media production and I also taught cinematography. So a lot of people, a lot of filmmakers tend to teach later in their careers. But I like that I'm kind of teaching now. I don't teach a lot. I think last year I taught 3 classes and I realized 3 classes plus freelancing was too much. And I didn't teach in the fall because of COVID, but this semester I'm teaching again and I have 2 classes, but one was accelerated, so it was only 7 weeks. I'm not gonna lie, even the 2 classes, I feel like it's almost too much, because I'm just in this. I'm in a shoot first mode, but I enjoy teaching while I freelance because I get to take things that I learn on set now and give them to my students who are 18 to 23. I'm not super old. I'll be 27 this year, but to be able to give them information at 18, stuff that I didn't learn until I was 26, that's going to put them at a higher advantage for when they graduate and they get to start working on set. I think I got 4 of my students on American Idol as production assistants. And I've never worked for American Idol, but my students did. So that it just makes me feel good that I can get them in the industry. Do I see any Black women in the film industry? I do. So DC is a very diverse place. So I get to meet a lot of whether they're African American or Guyanese or Dominican. As of the last year or so, anyway, in DC, I've met a lot of filmmakers of color, especially Black women. And then there's I can't forget her name. Or no, I think she's a DP in the film industry, and she works in LA. Her name's Sybil Martin. I follow her on Twitter, and she does really good work as well. But you meet a lot of filmmakers if you. It's kind of different now because of COVID, but traveling to film festivals is where I meet the most Black women in the industry, whether they are producers or directors or in the camera department. Seeing Black women in the camera department is what I see the least of, but that's what I've started to see more this year, which is a great thing. So yes, we are out there. And yeah, hopefully we will start getting our shine soon.
Yeah. That's good to hear. Thank you so much, LaDawn.
You're welcome.
I just want to check, does anybody else want to ask LaDawn a question directly? Feel free to ask.
Yeah, so like I said, I'll send the email, but these are just some other books that I like to have because, like I said, I'm heavily influenced by photography. So I also paint a little bit too. But this is just a photography book by Sally Mann, and it's called Immediate Family. I like Sally's work because it's mainly about her children. But it was very controversial when it first came out because she took photos of her kids in the nude, but they weren't inappropriate. They were just at home, running around outside. They were like 2, some other things like that. And, she was just documenting her life. And because this, at the time it came out, it's not what people are used to seeing. She got in a lot of trouble for it. So yeah, that's one book. There's another book called Role Models. There's a question here. Do you prefer an over-prepared director to the opposite? Yes, I prefer over-prepared for sure. because you can never be too over prepared, especially on set, because something is going to go wrong. It does not matter how perfectly you plan it doesn't matter how well in advance you track the weather. Something will break or rip, or just, somebody will be late, or just things of that nature. Something is going to happen on set. So you can never be too prepared. You should never be underprepared, because if you don't do the proper pre-production, it shines during production, and that's how you get behind on your days. That's how you don't finish your days. Is how, at the end, what you get might not be what you wanted. So you should always be over prepared versus under prepared. This is the book Tulsa by Larry Clark that I was talking about earlier. This is the Robert Mapplethorpe book. And then this was like a random book I got from the Barnes and Noble photography section. It's called New Erotic Photography. It's not really erotic, but it's a huge book of just people, and it's very inspiring, and it's great inspiration as far as looking for shot types and things of that sort, and trying to find people in their natural habitat where it feels, real and not overplayed. But yeah, and then this is the Carrie Mae Weems book, the Kitchen Table series. So these are kind of my go-tos and what I look at when I'm first sitting down to do my lookbooks and things of that nature. So for a while, it didn't matter what film I was shooting, I always started my lookbook with a still from the film Eve's Bayou. But not the rom-com, I had this completely different approach. It was all new. So I usually do that. But I also love the director Charles Burnett. I think the first time I've seen Killer Sheep, I fell in love. I also like his film To Sleep with Anger. There's a film called Lackawanna Blues that's about Black family, but they're not, they're not blood, but they're all family, and it's a nice coming of age story. I love the color in that film. So yeah, films like that, films like Harlem Nights, and that sort. This was fun. I hope you guys enjoyed it.
Oh, we did, LaDawn. We did. I've got all these technical questions to ask you, but I think it might just be too technical.
We can always try it.
Well, I think maybe it's just like explaining in diffusion paper, your joules, your quarters, your halves, your fulls. What does it mean,
Gotcha. So when you're talking about gels and you have a quarter or a half, that is essentially like how thick it is. So it's half the diffusion or a quarter of the diffusion from whatever the full number is. So if you're at a full, you're 100%. So at a quarter of that, you're going to be at 25. At half, you're going to be at 50. It's about cutting the light, and cutting the light means dimming the light, or not dimming it, because you can dim it as well. But cutting the light means you're just cutting the intensity of it. So that's kind of what those numbers reference. Same for the diffusion. How much diffusion do you want to add? What do you want it to be? A quarter, a half? Do you want to be 1? Do you want it to be 2? Things of that nature.
Thank you. And then I just wanted to know, just if you're shooting someone whose skin is a little bit darker, do you have to choose differently? I mean, is it a little bit harder?
So it's not. It's honestly, well, for me, because I'm a Black woman, it's easier. So a lot of people think that with Black skin, you have to just throw light at it, because like it absorbs the light. and they tend to light black skin very harshly, and it looks really bad. But the last couple of
Yes.
2 years, we've gotten better gaffers and just DPs who care more, because black DPs are starting to, um their work is starting to be seen and be supported. So we see black skin being lit differently. So black skin for me, black skin looks really good under soft light. It looks really good under bounced light.
Agreed.
Yeah,
Yeah.
under like it looks really good under bounced light as well. I think black skin looks great in tungsten lighting. I LED lighting is easier, and because of the way the industry's going, it also cuts down on time too, and it also just looks good. They put really good science into it. But for me, it's nothing like tungsten lighting and just getting an actual Fresnel light set and having the tungsten bulb in there, because you get a certain type of warmth with that than you do with the LED lights. So I tend to like that. I like to light with practicals a lot too. So if there's lamps in the house or if there's candles around, I like to do that. And then I love some daylight, because with daylight you don't really have to flood it, but once you get a lot of daylight, you get to shape the light as well, with things called flags. So you can put a solid up or a negative up, which is just a black flag that'll cut the light. It'll dim it, on one side. Or if you can put a red flag up, which is outlined in red, and then or one that's outlined in green, and that means like it's a single or a double, and that just means you're gonna cut the intensity of the light by 2 stops or by 1 stop. um I hope that wasn't too technical.
That was fantastic. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
I liked your hints because I'm just imagining people who have very low budgets and how do
Mhm.
they pull that off. And
Yeah.
yeah,
So,
we've got a question, just one question from Heru. She wants to know, are you open to emails or communication of any kind?
oh yeah, you can shoot me an email, or you can message me on Instagram if you have an Instagram. I'll put that in the chat. Uh, oh yeah, there we go. Um, so yeah, they just put my Instagram in the chat. You can feel free to send me a message there. And then when they email out the books as well, I'll send an email that you guys can email me at. But I'm always open to communication. Um, I was going to try to do a lighting workshop for you all, but the cameras on the computer, they see everything, and my apartment is full of white walls, so I would only be able to bounce the light off of that. So when I say like bounce light off the wall, I mean aim the light directly at the wall, and then the light that'll hit me is technically like the lights that's bouncing off of the wall. So that's what that means. Because otherwise, if you don't, you're gonna get really harsh shadows. So, yeah, but the camera sees everything. So if I set that up, it wouldn't have worked. I would have just kind of looked the same. So yeah. But all right, we're gonna wrap it up. So I thank you guys for joining. I hope you guys learned something. Feel free to ask me questions or send me questions, especially if you have technical questions, since I didn't get deep into that process. But yes, I enjoyed this. Thank you all.